Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and NBs. How are you doing today? This is IndieQuest, the celebration of the indie and obscure. We're back at it like a bad habit. My name is Josh. I'm one of your co-hosts today, and I'm here with one of my stellar co-hosts, the captain himself, Captain Drachma. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Josh. You were extremely energetic in that opening. I love that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. You bring in the heat. Oh, sorry, I haven't been introduced yet.
Yeah, I guess Steve's here too. Hi, Steve.
Yep. Sorry. Didn't mean to be excited about hanging out with my bros and talking about indie games. My bad.
No, you start the episode off with like a lot of energy, and then just kind of like whittles away by then, right? That's how it goes.
Yeah, I call that polykill syndrome.
Yeah, get really sleepy by the end.
Yep, it's so true.
Oh, so before the show, we were talking about. I was on Twitter. We're gonna post a poll right now. Is Shantae Game Boy Color an indie game? And we're gonna put the timer at. Oh, it can only go up to a week. I thought we could do 2 weeks, but that's fine. We'll do a week and see what people say.
Very curious. I'm not gonna thumb the scales in any way, but
I'm thumbing them.
You know what to do.
I'm
do.
thumbing the crap out of those scales. I might create more accounts.
It should still be live whenever this episode posts, so go vote.
Perfect.
Yeah. Let us know. Boys, are you hyped? We're in GOTY season, all right? We're not in GOTY talking season, but we're in GOTY prep season. October ends, November starts, and it's like you've only got 2 months, realistically like a month and a half, to catch up on everything you want to before a GOTY episode drops. How you feeling? Are you feeling pretty confident, or are you feeling a little stressed?
I'm feeling very confident. As of today, I think I said 12 last time. Now I'm at 13, so that might indicate the game that I brought today was from this year, and that is true. I am going to dabble in some games in between episodes that I probably won't bring, but I'm hoping to get to 15 plus by that time, and that's make me feel really happy. I'll probably never match it again, but I'm excited for it, and I'm really excited for that episode with you guys. I had a really fun time chatting last year, so
yeah. I'm playing a small indie game. It's about this guy in high school, and he goes and gets bit by a spider and gets radioactive powers, and and can swing through the city. It's called Spider-Man 2, sequel of some
I thought
sort.
you were describing Goodbye Volcano High.
Yeah, at first I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, all right, yeah.
Yeah. He's really setting this one up. Hey, that's on my list too. I got to get around to it, but there are a lot of indies I want to get to by the end of the year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like an obligation to play some of the stuff you guys have played. Like, I want to play Planet Alana before the end of the year.
I do too. Yeah.
It would be nice. I was going to say another one, but now I don't know if that's what Josh brought today. Josh, did you bring a 2023 game today?
I did. You might be able to guess what it is.
I'm not going to read the beat tweets and summon your game from the ether, but I want to play maybe that one too.
Okay. Space for the Unbound. I think you need to play that this year.
I didn't know that was a 2023 game. I forgot. And
it was January.
Yeah. If you can find the time, I think it's worth your time.
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's a little bit lengthier of a game, but very.
Was it like 12 hours?
Yeah,
something like that.
10ish.
Yeah.
You could.
I mean, it's November 6th as we record this. I just got to get through, like I said, Planet Alana, mystery other game. Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. I got to play Birth. That's another one I want to play. In terms of non-indies, just a little Alan Wake 2, finish up Starfield, finish up Zelda, probably squeeze in Spider-Man 2, Baldur's Gate 3. So
right.
I think I've got the space.
You'll figure it out.
If you start Baldur's Gate 3 today, then hopefully you can get it done by December 31st, because that is a meaty game.
I think Pam was like I'm 80 hours in this game. I had to wrap it up. Like, I'm good, So.
Yeah.
At some point in my past, I don't know exactly when, there was a branching point where I made the decision subconsciously. From this point forward, you either play only Baldur's Gate for the rest of the year or other games.
Right.
And I chose other games, so I feel bad, but it's true.
So, speaking of games that Steve would like, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about my indie game. What a segue.
Oh, right into the picks.
Whoa.
Let's do it.
What a segue. I don't think we've ever done this. We always stumble over each other. But I just decided, you know what? I'm going first. And honestly, I think that you both would like this game, but, we were talking about what Steve would like. So I played a little indie gem, I would say, that came out this year. This summer, I believe, or spring. I don't ever know about June, but it came out June 10th. It is called Smushi Come Home. Have you guys...
Smushi Come Home.
Yes, I've heard of it.
Have I heard? I don't think I've heard of it. Let's give it the old goog.
Yeah, give it.
That's what I was doing.
Give it the goog.
Give the clicky clackies there.
Oh,
Yep.
I've seen screenshots of this game. Oh, hell yeah. Talk to me about this game. Let's go.
This game, developed by Some Humble Onion. Platforms are PC and Switch, but I will tell you now, if you do not care at all about achievements, play it on Switch. If you want to potentially 100% this game, I would buy it on PC, play it that way, because I'm spoiling some things for later, I guess, in my review, but it is very obtainable, I will say. There are in-game achievements, like your classic PlayStation N64 platformers will have like an extra menu that says, oh, this is what you've achieved this, but it doesn't give you anything. There's no fun trophies, right? So that's just my recommendation. Overview. It is what I would call a chill 3D platformer collectathon, which is not typically the games that I bring to IndieQuest. This is definitely a brancher for me because this is much more in your two wheelhouse than it is in mine. I of course love my Mario 64s and especially my Spyros. I love Spyro. I'm not sure if I've mentioned that before, but this game is a very friction-free 3D platformer, pretty easy breezy. And we'll get into some more of that in the gameplay. But I actually wanted to start with this game specifically with the story. So you play as a little anthropomorphic mushroom guy named Smushi. And at the very beginning, you're with your family on this little island in the middle of the water. And you're kind of talking to your brothers and sisters about just the general day-to-day stuff. They're doing different things. You have to help one of them out find their pet ladybug and things like that, right? Suddenly, you are swept off your feet by some sort of creature and taken away from them and basically whisked to a different island. You kind of black out, so you don't remember anything that you saw. And from the time that you land, wherever it is that you land, you have to find your way home. And that's why it's Smushi Come Home. So, presentation. You guys are looking at this. Gorgeous, gorgeous game. I would describe it as a basic cel-shaded 3D look. Actually, something that I immediately compared it to when I started playing is a game that I haven't played, but I actually watched Steve stream, and that is Lil Gator Game.
100%. I was going to say the
similar.
exact same thing. Yep.
Yes. Looks a lot like Lil Gator Game. Looks a little bit like whatever a 3D platformer version of Animal Crossing would be or something like that, right? There's not a lot of shading, I guess, in the colors. It's all pretty, like if it's brown, it's going to be brown from the top of whatever the thing is you're looking at, the cliff, let's say, to the bottom. It's all the same shade of brown. So it's basic that way. There's not gradients of shades. But when you are able to like look out at the world, say you're standing on top of a cliff and you're looking down, all the colors mixing together is just amazing. It looks very, very good. And it's something you're going to have to experience. Look up a couple screenshots, and if it's something that's you're into, I will say, I saw this game was on sale maybe a month or two ago, and I hadn't heard of it at that time. And at that time, it only had like 600 Steam reviews, but was very well reviewed, I will say. And we were moving into fall at that time, and it just looks like the perfect fall game. Sometimes you just grab a game that just matches the season you're in perfectly, and it makes sense. And this really did it. There are like summery spring locations too, but just the colors in general, most of it reminds me of the fall season. So it was a great game to play right now. Any other questions you guys have about how the game looks if you've looked at a couple screenshots before I jump into some gameplay stuff?
At least in the trailers, it looks like it runs very smooth. Like
Yeah.
the trailers to be believed, it seems like it's a solid 60 FPS, assuming you have a PC that can support it. It's not like it would be a very taxing game. So
No.
yeah, it looks good in motion. Like it animates cute as well.
Yeah, it looks like it would play very well on a GameCube. And I suppose
Right,
there's
yeah.
some Wind Waker stuff.
I can see that.
Yeah.
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 It looks like a GameCube game. I guess before we move into gameplay, there are a couple other things with presentation. There is no like clutter at all on the screen at any time. So as you're moving through the world, there's no health bar. There's nothing really obstructing your view from all the gorgeousness around you. There are menus that you can jump into that you can access a couple things, but for the most part, it's free and clear, and you can just see everything. There are a couple mechanics that will bring a gauge onto the screen that I'll get to here in a moment in gameplay, but they're very small on the screen, and it doesn't really obstruct anything, and it makes sense to have them there. I love the writing very, very much. There's lots of different NPCs, and something I remember very vividly, since it looks a lot like a Little Gator game, something I remember a lot about your playthrough of that game, Steve, was that the NPCs don't shut up ever. You talk to any of them, it's just paragraphs.
Yep.
And it's like sometimes you'd have to literally commit to it, realistically a 5-minute conversation with some of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
That is not. You can have a couple sentence back and forth with the character in this game, but you're done with most conversations in 30 seconds.
Which is perfect, honestly. I mean, different games warrant different levels of story and dialogue and stuff, but I feel like generally in my 3D platformers, you have to have a really good reason to be talking.
Yes.
Like, this is not a game or a genre I'm playing for the story, so get it out of my way unless you really have something special to say.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm seeing there's a capybara here. Can you talk to the capybara?
Yes.
That's my question.
Okay. There is a whole quest where you meet with 3 capybaras specifically, and you have to. They're not getting along at the time. I don't want to spoil a lot, but there's some things you have to do to make them get along, I will say.
That's cute.
But yeah, you get to ride the capybara around on the water, which is awesome and very cool looking. But yeah, back to the writing really quickly. It's not extensive at all. It's not burdensome. And honestly, it is incredibly witty and made me smirk almost every time I talk to anybody. So I didn't come to listen to these characters talk, but it made the game better for it, right?
Nice.
It didn't detract.
Perfect. That's what you want. Yep.
Yes. So, gameplay. Excellent controls. Everything feels so good as you're moving around the world. It's just extremely intuitive, other than, the weirdest thing, I guess, was when you're having conversations with different NPCs. Rather than pressing A on the Xbox controller, you have to press X to continue the dialogue, right? Which is kind of weird. But for the most part, everything was exactly as you think it would be. I did, at the very beginning, I played it with controller. I suppose you probably could play with keyboard and mouse, but I probably would never suggest doing that with a 3D platformer. I had to adjust the camera sensitivity because every time I moved my stick a little bit at the beginning, it just seemed like the camera was all over the place. But it gives you that option. There's plenty of options to customize it the exact way you want. So I turned the sensitivity down because for most 3D platformers, unless it's super twitchy, you're not going to need it to be incredibly sensitive, right? Like I mentioned before, it's a very easy breezy game, collectathon. Most puzzles you run into are not very hard at all. But it still gives you that feeling of the aha moment where it's like, oh, I know what to do. And it's not difficult, but it still gives you that fun endorphin in your brain, right? Like, oh, that was fun. I'm glad I solved that. It almost made me feel like when I was a kid, when I was 10 years old or 8 years old, this is the kind of game that I would have absolutely adored. And now that I'm 32, I still love it because I know that kid me would love it, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gather a whole bunch of useful tools. You end up getting very early on some hooks, which are, it's funny because they have Smushi gives names to all the things that he uses that are kind of funny because they're actual like human things. So his hooks are rusty hooks, which are fishing hooks that he uses to climb scale walls. Later on, he gets an upgrade to those. He gets a leaf glider a la Breath of the Wild. I feel like there was something like that, if I remember correctly, in Tinykin or something.
Little Gator game had one
Wind
too.
Waker 2, famously.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, Little Gator game did have one. So, yes, you can float around the map like that. There's a stamina bar. Something I really enjoyed about that is I feel like, for the most part, when you're gliding in games like this, you have stamina and you're going to eventually, it's going to get worn out and you're going to fall. But in this game, for the most part, as long as you have that stamina, there's like a little ring above you as you're gliding. You almost stay perfectly level for as long as that stamina lasts. You're very gradually descending, but I kind of like that because when I look across from me and I see there's another cliff over there and I'm not sure if I can make it there, as long as it's pretty much level to what I'm at, I know that I can actually achieve that, right? Which was really cool. Collectibles. There's all kinds of things to collect. There are gems that you can get that basically turn into currency. Certain characters will say, hey, I have this thing that could help you, but I really like green crystals. So you give them however many green crystals they're after. And then you get the thing, and you use that thing to achieve something else in the game. There are also purple crystals, which aren't used to pay any NPCs, but allow you to basically, you get these things called augmenters. And when you get an augmenter, you have to use your purple crystals to unlock them. And it's usually 12 for every single augmenter. And those change the color and type of mushroom that Smushi is actually wearing as a cap. And usually I don't care about skins when I'm playing games like this. But every single time I got a new one, I would immediately click on it and play with it until I got the next one. Nice. So it was just really cool. Yes. You get wind essences, which makes your glide more powerful, right? So every single time you get another wind essence, you can glide further. You get spores of energy, which give you a dash, so you can actually press, for me on the Xbox controller, is the right trigger. You can actually dash around and go quickly right on the ground. That also has a stamina bar. There's lots of side quests for NPCs I kind of already mentioned. It makes sense, at least to me, to chase achievements for this game. The most difficult achievement on Steam was at like 25%, right? Which is not tough, right? So not a difficult game to 100%. And I think it's almost a game that begs to be 100% because lots of the achievements are actually tied to different side quests where you get more funny story bits and you meet more characters. And I know in a lot of these games, like, Steve talked about how you don't really care about people talking in these 3D platformers, but And I agree. Like, for the most part, I don't care. But every NPC, like I already mentioned, is very funny and witty and cool to talk to. And I kind of wanted to talk to every single one of them because they would always say something that would make me smile. And frankly, I was smiling basically the entire time I played this game. So you also there are mushrooms all over the place. You play as a little mushroom, but there are also mushrooms growing up from the ground all over the place. And you have this thing called a mycology journal. Do you guys know what mycology is?
Yeah, it's like the study of mushrooms,
right?
Correct. So you have a page in your menu journal that tells you every time you encounter a new mushroom, it will say, oh, we've added this to your mycology journal. And then you can go there and read through what each and every mushroom that you encounter is. And it seems so stupid, right? Because I could technically Google that stuff, and that's really what it is. It's kind of like a mini Wikipedia page on these mushrooms. But I enjoyed reading through what it was and what happens to these mushrooms at nighttime and things like that, and why they're different colors. And then at the bottom of it, there's always a note from Smushi where Smushy's like, oh, this is the reason I like this mushroom. And it's kind of reminds me of, like, if it rained, I could stand it, so it was just very cute, cool. Very charming.
It has a little bit of like an edutainment angle to it there.
A little
which
bit,
is cool.
Yes.
It's nice. Yeah, it just adds a little flavor. Yeah, I like it.
So, on to the music. This game has an incredible OST. Incredible. And honestly, the main thing I dislike about this soundtrack is there is not enough of it. It's too short of a game to have too many tracks. But one of the coolest things, and I feel like not enough games do this, and they were specific. I read some stuff afterwards, and this was extremely intentional. There are main like hub worlds, I guess, and then like side caves and stuff that you can explore. But for every hub world, you actually have a map within your menu that you can see kind of where Smushi is, and then everything that you've uncovered. Within that map and within that overworld of that area, there are sub areas where there's specific NPCs in each of these. And as you go into that sub area, it will flash on the screen really quickly like, this is where you are, right? It'll tell you the title of that area. Every time you do that, the music changes subtly. So the music is dynamic. The song is always the same for the area, but they use different instruments. They use maybe a different cadence, right? The amount of instruments they must use is insane. And my favorite parts was when randomly you'd be listening to the same song you've heard for the last 15 minutes because you've been in this area, and you enter into a new sub area, and all of a sudden there's chip tunes,
Oh, nice.
just layered
That's
in.
awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Incredible, calming, almost always upbeat, but there are like some cave music that's a little bit more mellow, but is still cheery at the same time, right? There's nothing like haunting about this soundtrack. It's almost always positive. And I'll be honest, I've listened to it straight through probably 5 times after playing this game, and I can't get enough. I just wish there was more, honestly. I can get through it. I feel like it's probably 20, 25 minutes, if that, and then you're done. But yeah, so great music. And I think that brings me to the end of my review, and I will throw it onto our quest log. So do you guys have any other questions about Smushi Come Home before I do that?
I don't have other questions, but I just always respect when a game does the thing where you are small and interacting with normal objects that from your perspective are very large. I always find that charming, tinykin this game. So it automatically gets +1 point for me for doing that. Yeah,
and you'll just randomly run into, you won't know, you'll be like climbing up something, right? Like there's a ledge or something you have to climb up, and you'll notice that there's like this round cylindrical thing, and you'll be like, okay, I'm going to climb up that to get to the next thing. But then once you get up on stuff and look down, and like the perspective changes, you can see things from further away. You're like, oh, that's a pop can. That's a shovel. So it's like you're in somebody's garden, and these massive lakes and stuff that you think you're in, they could be like small pools in somebody's house for all you know. Really, like it seems like it's huge, but then when you kind of match it up with the perspective of the things that you see in the world, it's like, oh, it's probably not actually that big, right? But yeah.
I was just gonna ask, how long is it to like complete, and then maybe how long to 100% too?
Yeah, perfect. So I think if you're rushing the game, you could probably finish it in 2 to 3 hours. My play time was around 5.5, but I was very much vibing a lot of the time, just walking around, retracing my steps just to make sure I didn't like forget anything or miss something. So yeah, it could take you a little bit longer, but to absolutely 100% the game, it took me close to 6 hours, but I have read on How Long to Beat that a lot of people did it in like 4. So It's very doable. I just was chilling, right? And there's probably some idle time in there too.
Perfect.
All right, so I will put it on the quest log, and I'm going to do my best here to explain the quest log. This might be the first time I've ever done it, tried to do it solo and Josh doesn't jump in, but I'm going to do it. So a main quest game is a game that you can recommend to everybody, and almost anybody you know will almost certainly enjoy it as soon as they play it. A side quest game is a lot, sometimes more niche. Certain people will probably love it. Certain people will not like it at all. And sometimes they're just not as good as those main quest games, but still really good games, and that's why we bring them here. So, Smushi Come Home. Short game, pretty simple experience, pretty friction-free. Honestly, I went into this thinking it's probably going to be a very good side quest game for me. It's, very much the vibe that I was after. I'm not a huge 3D platformer fan, so I figured, maybe it won't be my favorite game in the world. But I am here to tell you, it is absolutely a main quest game. It is.
Yo, favorite
Nice.
game in the world now.
It's so.
Get out, Death's Door.
It's
Smushy's got something to say.
it's not Death's Door. I will say it's not Death's Door.
Yeah, because it's better.
I will say, you go to Steam, if anybody's looking and listening at home, I think it's sitting at 99% approval rating on Steam,
Right.
which is
I've heard good things. So
that's insane. Very difficult to achieve that. And honestly, I think when I bought it, it was sitting at 100. So as soon as a game is riding at the 100% line, you're going to have people that buy it just to downvote it for something, right? But very good game. Well worth the main quest. It's short and sweet, but everything it offers, I just think, is overwhelmingly puts it into that main quest category.
Yeah, this is going to be one I put on my. It's already in my wish list. I was kind of waiting for the autumn sale, which is coming soon. So
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be like 25% off or something then, and I'll probably pick it up.
Yeah.
Especially since I know that this is probably not your primary genre, and you had such a good time with it. So
It's very much a vibe game, especially this time of year. You look outside and the leaves are falling, and then you're playing Smushi, and there's those amazing colors. I'm telling you, I smiled from beginning to end. If you don't have get at least some enjoyment out of this game, I feel like you're a little bit heartless. That's all I'll say. This is a very play it and be happy game. Play it when you're not sure exactly what else to play. Play it when you don't want some massive struggle, friction gameplay, right? It's very good for that.
The world needs more games like that.
Yes.
Makes me hope that it comes to PlayStation so I can get my platinum.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. All right, Josh. Which one of us is going to be?
I can go right now if you want. That's fine.
Mine is
Or do you wanna
actually going to
go?
be really short, so I'll close us out.
Okay, that sounds good. I played a little game 2023 as well. I feel like this is the time to be playing 2023 games.
Yeah, you're probably going to get more recent stuff.
Yeah, so this game's called Venba. Have you guys heard of it?
Yeah, I have, because I almost said it at the top of the show.
Yeah, that's true. So, kind of an overview for the game. It's a narrative cooking game. You play as an Indian mom who immigrates to Canada with her family in the 80s. You kind of cook various dishes in this kind of cooking mini game, and it's intercut with a bunch of just dialogue trees and conversation tree type things. The art style is very beautiful. It's hand drawn. It's very, you can see like the personality from just the art style. It just screams like a very unique perspective already. It just, I don't know how to describe it. Kind of like soft edges, very like warm color palettes, 2D planes, right? Like nice looking cartoon style drawings.
Lots of pinks and purple hues, lavenders. The characters almost remind me, and this is not a bad thing, but they almost remind me of like a Cartoon Network show in a way. Mm-hmm. But then there's also a lot of really nice close-up, sort of like high-res pixel art of food, of course.
Yeah, it's like some really good food art in this game, I'll say.
Yeah, I feel like games like this, and I feel like I've said this before, but that's okay. It always reminds me of sitting in a circle in first grade or second grade and having your teacher open up this picture book that she's reading to you, and she reads the words and then turns her hand out so you can see the pictures. Like, this is very much a children's picture book that you could pull off of any shelf in any elementary school library. Right. That's what it reminds me of. Yeah,
so I actually really think this game, everything that this game does with the food and the cooking mechanics, it's very additive to the story. Like, it really is about this kid connecting with an immigrant parent through food. And so the cooking mini games you're cooking all authentic, like South Indian dishes, different things that you probably never heard of, which is really cool. I'm kind of learning about dishes as I'm cooking. These are real recipes from the developers. I heard an interview where he said that. And so this is all like legitimate food that he cooked as a kid. So there's already a piece of that, of himself in the game, so it's very easy puzzles. You kind of have a cookbook with little sections like aged out or ripped out, or, oh no, we spilled something on this part of the menu. So you have to kind of like look at context clues of what's there on the menu. So say maybe like step number 2 is not there, or 3. So you kind of have to figure out the order of operations for like these 10 different things that you got to put into this dish. You got to boil this, You got to stir this, and it's very simple controls. And if you fail, they go, hey, maybe that's not the recipe. Try it again. And then you usually figure it out within 2 or 3 tries or attempts at that. And that's pretty much all there is to the cooking. But I mean, it's actually very simple. They play like very unique, like different music in the background. Sometimes there's like Indian hip hop. Sometimes there's just like really like chill beats to, to cook to, stuff like that. I think it runs the gamut, and all the music has that flair, that Indian culture. I feel like that's what they were really trying to push with this game,
Yeah.
So if you could legit, you said they're real recipes, right? So after you cook something in this game, could you cook it in real life?
I think you could. They're actually going to, on their Twitter, they recently announced they're going to go put out a downloadable cookbook with all these recipes with the exact ingredients and the directions and everything from the game. So I was sitting here getting hungry playing this. Like, this food looks delicious, it's very nicely rendered out every single time. Yeah, I was thinking that too. I was like, man, I need to learn how to cook some Indian food. Like, I don't know. I don't have a lot of experience with Indian food, so maybe I should get more, So, yeah, I think this type of game, the story is everything. Like, if the story flops, the game flops, right? So I think that this story was really well told, and it put me in the shoes of, a character that I wouldn't otherwise have that experience in, which is always great for a game. And, I'm just a white dude in America. This is an immigrant family, and I get to kind of like take a peek at what their lives like, and it's very personal. So I think that between the dialogue trees, and I think the dialogue trees aren't going to like steer the story in a different direction. They're more like flavor to the conversation, get it, cooking flavor. And it's more just like, okay, what are you going to say in this situation? You have 3 choices, and it's going to probably change like 1 or 2 lines, and the story is going to continue on the same. It's a very intentional story. So that's always nice. The game gives you that little bit of flavor that you can add to it. And then I think the way that it builds really well from like the story, and it's very sad at times. It has some, tragedy, and there's hope in it, and love, and it's inspiring. It has all the facets of a really good story. I think that it does it like almost perfectly with the right amount of time too. It's not a very long game. I would put it like movie length, around 2 hours. Yeah. So, any questions about Venba?
I mean, it seems pretty straightforward, but I've heard that the puzzles are like quote unquote puzzles are pretty smooth. Was that your experience, or was there any times where you got caught up on it?
I would say maybe on one of like the near the end, there's it's maybe mild spoiler. No, not really, but you're cooking a lot of things at the end, not just one recipe. And there's a couple in there I was like, okay, I had to try maybe 4 times instead of twice. You know what I mean? Right. So it's not, I think the way they do it is just enough hints. You still get a little bit of aha, when you figure it out. And it has really nice animations. It's like really just stunning cooking. It's probably the best cooking I've seen in the game, or up there, So definitely gives you that that good wholesome feeling when you get a recipe correct too.
Yeah, it's got the best simmering that I've ever seen in a video game. All right. So many of these things are like simmering in like a little bit of oil or in some broth or something. And I'm like, yeah, give me that.
Yeah. It is very satisfying. And it does, I think, and you can't go wrong with like the sounds in the game. Like, I think that they must have cooked these dishes and like held mics up to the food or something as people were cooking them. You know what I mean? Cause like it's that authentic feeling. I feel like if you're going to put like a one adjective for this whole game, I would just say authentic. It's like from the heart. So, everything says it, from the art style to the music to the graphics and the gameplay.
I think it's really cool, Josh, that you played a game that's about, an Indian family. And earlier this year we played A Space for the Unbound, which is about Indonesia. So you're becoming cultured in 2023 with your indie games, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think just the access to being able to make a game, and all the diverse people that can make games, because how much access there is to everything nowadays is really cool. Yeah. So you're starting to see that more often where it's like, this game is about me. If you're like me, you're going to see yourself in this game, which I think is something beautiful, you know?
It really it feels to me, if I assume folks are usually looking up games as we talk about them, but you know, some folks are driving and they're in the car or whatever it is. But from your description and just like the screenshots and videos I can see, it really feels like it fits into like a certain classification of game that I would put like If Found and Florence in, like a very specific type of like short narrative focused adventure / puzzle game.
So I guess the question is, does it live up to Florence or If Found for me?
That's true. Yeah, you have both of those on the quest log, don't you?
I don't know if we ever put Florence on the quest log, have we?
Little mini spoiler. I just played Florence the other couple weeks ago, so
okay,
it's good. I'm not bringing it to the quest log anytime soon, but I did play it, so that makes me feel cool that you guys are talking about.
It's a good game.
There you go. Hey. Yeah, I love that game. Anyways, Venba.
Anyway, we're both so just distracted looking up the quest log now. Okay, anyway, I would put this game on a main quest. I think it does everything it sets out to do, and actually surprised me. I thought this would be like, oh yeah, that was a nice little time, you know, cooking some food. But I think the emotion and the storyline and everything, having the character grow up in Canada and have that, you know, language barrier where he's speaking English and has to translate for his parents and things like that, you start like just putting yourself in the shoes of these people. And I think they just play it off so well that when you're done with it, it's like watching a good movie. You know, you're done. It's like, wow, that really moved me and brought a little bit of humor and made me think a little bit. And I think this game does everything it sets out to do in spades.
Hell yeah.
Main quest.
Oh my God, we're two for two.
Yeah.
Oh,
what's going
no?
happen?
Steve's coming, side quest time, right?
Exactly. But I did want to shout out a little crossover here. Venba starts with a V. And anybody who's trying to do that polykill challenge, V is one of those weird letters at the end of the alphabet that are hard to find games for, especially short ones sometimes. Yeah. So
and on Game Pass too.
Oh,
so
nice!
That's how I played it.
Perfect. Yeah.
Awesome. I didn't know this was on Game Pass. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Sounds good. You guys both brought cozy games. All right. In fact, I think both of your games probably were featured in the Cozy Games showcase.
Most likely.
During Summer Games
the Hummel
Fest.
game. Yeah, whatever it's called.
Yeah. Mine's not cozy. I'm going to ruin that streak. Josh, I think you know what it was because you almost mentioned it last episode. I'm spilling a little bit of Halloween into post-Halloween here. Okay.
That's okay.
And I'm going to be bringing Inscryption. All right.
Oh, yeah.
So, my first question is, have either of you played Inscryption?
I have not played it, no.
Neither have I, but I feel like this is one of those games where no one ever describes to you what's going on in this game because it ruins everything.
I'm also not going to describe to you, but I will do what I can. So.
No, I'm not saying but I have looked at a few screenshots and I'm like, what the hell is going on with this game? Like that's
it's a card game.
Yeah,
and then,
it's so weird.
Yeah, I don't know much about it honestly. Like besides that, it's like a creepy card game.
Deck
so, and I know there's a twist of some type. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So you've already said too much. I'm going to say this. If you out there are interested in Inscryption, I'm not going to bury the lead. I'm not going to put on the quest log yet, but I'm going to tell you now. You should go play Inscryption, okay? If you're interested in Inscryption, you can turn off the podcast, you know. Follow IndieQuest Pod on Twitter and email us and all that stuff. Get out of here. I want to talk to you, all right? The person that already knows they want to play it, you're gone. You're out of here. Goodbye. All right. To the person who's not 100% sure because they've heard it's good, but they have no context at all, I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes. You're my target audience. Inscryption is a freaking vibe game, okay? Haunted card game is kind of a nice way of describing it. So I'm just going to paint you a premise of what happens. And everything I'm describing here is the initial setup, and I would say within the first hour of gameplay. You wake up having no idea what happens, or what has happened in this dark, very eerie cabin. And across the table from you is just a glowing set of eyes. Like it is a person obscured in the darkness. You can only see their eyes glowing. Very haunting. And they speak to you, and they kind of roll out a mat, and they say, I want you to play this game with me. Okay. And they proceed to have you start playing a card game. You know, very, very much in the vein of like Magic the Gathering, Hearthstone, Marvel Snap to keep Josh interested.
Josh's like, I am in.
Hell yeah. Let's go.
Let's do this.
So you start playing a card game, and it's actually a really well designed card game. I want to touch on it for a little bit, because I think a lot of people think of the card game as like the setup for something else, but the card game itself is incredible. So imagine you took a game like Hearthstone or like Magic the Gathering, and you kind of simplified it down to a game that can almost always be completed in like a couple of turns. So the way that it works is you have a deck of creatures. It is like a deck builder. So you start with a deck that's only like 4 cards, and then you have a side deck that is just squirrels. And every turn you can choose to draw from your main deck or from your squirrel deck. And the cards in your main deck you can play by sacrificing a certain number of creatures. There's little blood icons on the cards, and you have to sacrifice that many. That means you either have to sacrifice that many squirrels, or that many squirrels plus other cards you've already played. Right. And I'm saying the more you sacrifice, the stronger your card is. And then the game is split up into lanes. There's 5 lanes. And if you are opposite your opponent's monster, you will attack them and deal damage to that card. Or if you're opposite an empty lane, you'll do damage directly to the enemy hero. And the way that health works, which is interesting, I've never seen this in a card game before. You don't have 8,000 life points, Yu-Gi-Oh style.
I was thinking it sounds a little Yu-Gi-Oh-y.
The setup is very Yu-Gi-Oh actually.
That's cool.
Like the play mat and stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess the way that you sacrifice monsters to summon stronger monsters too.
I was thinking,
thing.
Yep.
That's how you get your freaking blue eyes on, right?
That's right.
You got to sacrifice 2 meaty boys.
That's right.
2 4-stars.
Yep.
The health system is a scale, and when you deal damage to the enemy, you drop I'm just gonna say objects. You can think of them as like damage counters onto your opponent's side of the scale, up to 5, and if you get to 5, you win. And then when they deal damage to you, they drop tokens on your side of the scale. So you don't have like a maximum number of life points. You can go back and forth over and over again. Your goal is to gain enough of an advantage on board to win by more than 5 points. So you have to like kind of create overwhelming force or strategically avoid their creatures to have like one strong turn. And the way that ends up playing out in practice really is that like games are very snappy, very fast, because there's no, again, like Yu-Gi-Oh, for people that follow competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, the meta has gotten to the point where it's just like it's first turn wins, right? Like you go through half your deck, boom, 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 go. It's not quite that ridiculous pace, but it is very like you draw the right monster, you have the right setup, you can do some fast damage. All right. Mm-hmm. You can really get cooking.
Nice.
And that's good, because this entire card game is set up sort of like under the guise of this, like, it's like a D&D campaign that you did not volunteer to be a part of. So the person who's playing opposite you rolls out this map, and there's different icons on the map. As you move along, there's icons that'll let you draw new cards, buff your cards, gain passive buffs, bunch of other things I'm not going to describe to you, but bunch of interesting objectives and decisions that you have to make. But as you go through those, he'll take the role of like any other character that you would like come across on this like campaign that you're on. So you'll be, the mat is representing like woods that you're walking through, and you'll come across a cave, and the person across from you will like pull out a little fake cave up to their eyes. So it looks like now they're a pair of eyes in a cave, and then they'll speak to you as if they were like the cave monster or whatever it is. So it's like almost playful, but in like it's like kind of like a threatening sort of like jigsaw-y way where it's like you're playing a game, but you're not so happy about it. And the game itself is very fun. They add layers on top of that as you progress. There are boss fights and stuff within the game too. It's just very interesting. But then the extra layer, and again, this is early in the game, is at some point you go through a couple rounds of playing this. You're like go. You're kind of designed, as with many roguelikes, you kind of need to lose a couple of times. Like they want you to build yourself up, get familiar with the rules, etc. Yep. There's very much that. And then suddenly the person opposite you have no idea who this is. They are still completely shrouded in darkness. They'll be like, oh, we need this. I need like my dice or something. Can you go grab it for me off the table? And your character can stand up and walk around the cabin you're in. You're not just locked to the board game or to the card game. And the world around you is like an escape room. So there's all sorts of weird stuff on the walls, paintings that don't make any goddamn sense.
Amanda the Adventure style.
Yeah, exactly. So it's you can poke around the cabin freely, like he's watching you the whole time, which is weird, but you can poke around the cabin freely and just sort of like experiment and try to figure out what the hell's going on. Why are you locked in here with this person? What's happening? And then from that point on, at any point that you're not in the middle of a battle, you can stand up from the table whenever you want. So you're actually kind of going back and forth between this table and the environment that surrounds you to sort of like both try to save yourself, but also just sort of understand what the hell got you into this situation to begin with. As you explore the cabin, sometimes you'll find like objects or items that you can use as sort of like a break glass in case of emergency tool to help you in the battle itself. So, a really obvious example of that is you can find like a squirrel in a bottle. So even if you don't have a squirrel in your hand, but you need one to sacrifice to play a creature, you have like a one-time use. I can once pull out a squirrel in a pinch if I really need it to save my ass.
So it's like an ace up your sleeve in poker type of deal.
Yep, exactly. And there's a whole bunch of different items like that you'll find or earn that can give you some pretty sick advantages, honestly. Like if you save them for the right times, you can really get ahead. It's so hard to talk about because there's so much you have to talk around in this game. But that in and of itself is awesome. And I will say that when you finish the game, they cleverly they unlock a mode that is like none of the exploration, like just the card game permanently. And it's sort of like Hades, where you can add like difficulty modifiers to like increase rewards. So you could just play that without any of the sort of metatextual layer and have a lot of fun. It is very well designed. I was surprised at how good it is.
What's better, the card game and Inscryption or Wheels?
I think the card game and Inscryption.
Yeah, it's probably more fleshed out.
Wheels is pretty good. Wheels is more fun, but I would say the hype of Wheels is maybe more hype than you ever experienced in Inscryption, but Inscryption is the better game.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
When the numbers are going up, dinging in Wheels, you're like, yeah, it's like rolling, like a hard 8 or something. You're jazzed,
right?
But in Inscryption, you're just like grateful.
Right, and you stumble into Wheels in Sea of Stars and don't realize Wheels is going to be there, so it's a happy surprise. Whereas I think anybody that knows anything about Inscryption probably knows there's a card game involved, so you're
mm-hmm. And yes, that is very much the case. And on top of this very well designed game, and then this other game surrounding the table that you're playing, all of the like important bits of the game are so well done. Like visually, it's got this sort of like. It's almost like, how A Short Hike had like that pixel filter that gave it like a pixelated look, even though you could tell that underneath it was like a 3D game running.
Right.
It's almost like that, but like higher res. The like art design is like very just like eerie and kind of it's like it's pulling from some like mythologies and stuff, but also pulling from some like certain types of horror, but then at the same time it's not explicitly scary. It's just more like unsettling or like just stressful. Sound design in this game, chef's kiss for the sound design. Both like all the important sounds, like the flipping through cards is like ASMR. It's so good, so satisfying. But then also when your opponent speaks to you, they speak in this like distorted kind of overwhelming tone that it's like an intense like pixelated foghorn almost, but in like a kind of satisfying way to listen to. It's very well done. You can tell that a lot of attention went into like the finer details of the world and the things that you explore. And there's so much more I want to say, but that's where you have to stop. Now, again, I feel like even saying this is more of a spoiler than I want to give, but I will like confirm that it is the type of game where there's more than meets the eye. Like there is much more than I'm saying to compel you to keep playing. There are layers for you to peel back and uncover. So if you're the type of person that enjoys that type of thing, you will find yourself in Inscryption.
It's like playing The Witness or something, or Fez, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of games that do similar things very well, where you're like, well, I didn't realize there was more to uncover. I will say this, and again, people don't want any spoilers, plug your ears. It depends on how well you know him. Drachma, I really feel like you should play Inscryption. If anyone in my life, if I was going to recommend Inscryption to one person, it would be you.
Well, I'm happy you brought it because it's a roguelite, right? Like basically it's a roguelite.
Yep.
So obviously I love those types of games. The thing that has always detracted me from Inscryption specifically, but from a lot of games like it, is the whole deck builder thing. I like card games, but for some reason I'm always immediately intimidated when I hear deck builder. I don't know why that is. I definitely want to check this out, but I don't know if you guys feel the same way. Whereas like sometimes a deck builder, you look at a couple screenshots of any deck builder that's coming out on Steam tomorrow, and it's just there's so much going on, right? I don't feel like that's the case though with Inscryption. At least it doesn't seem like it, but
it's not. I would say that both it is simpler than other games of that genre, but also they very carefully layer mechanics as you play. So like there are more than just one way, for example, to summon a creature than the sacrifice thing that I described. But they don't let you start drawing or using those types of creatures until you're very familiar with like sacrificing and summoning, so that by the time you're learning something new, you're done processing everything else you've previously learned.
That makes sense.
And it never gets the difficulty is high, but like relative to roguelikes that you've played, like Gungeons and stuff, even Hades, I would say you will not have a problem.
That's what's so weird. Thinking about this game with those games, I don't want you to spoil anything because I don't think anybody should be spoiled for it, but it doesn't seem like a skill game, like a twitchy game. But I don't. Yeah, okay.
Inscryption's good. Inscryption's good.
Yeah, I don't want to know anything going in.
Yeah,
so
I would never confirm nor deny anything.
Okay.
So that's where I'm going to stop it.
Okay.
Kind of on my introduction to Inscryption, because I don't want to say any more. It is truly the game that you have to just recommend to people on faith. So, as much as I am willing to answer questions, is there anything you guys want to know about the game, or anything that I can answer for you in as roundabout way as possible?
I feel like I should not. I'm in Google Images right now. I feel like I should not look at any of this. Probably.
No, get out of there.
Okay.
I don't want. And that's a warning to everyone. I mean, by the now you've already made your decision, but like, don't look anything up about this game. Don't read reviews about this game. Certainly don't watch YouTube videos about this game. Just lock yourself in your house until you finished Inscryption, and then go out and experience the discussion on it.
Right. I think this game is more appealing to me, you saying that it's not a complex deck builder, because I feel like I only have so much brain space for like a bunch of different characters and stuff. And that's what I worry about with like a game like Slay the Spire or something like that. It's like, okay, I know I'm going to have to learn all this, right? You know?
Yeah.
So,
right.
For you, Josh, to sell you on it, it's like, it's never as difficult as like a complicated game of Marvel Snap. And imagine Marvel Snap where you don't have to come up with the deck ideas. So like that's like the hardest part out of the way, right? So
that's the funnest part, though. Come on.
I mean, you can guide your deck, but you don't have to completely come up from scratch. You always start with a base set of cards.
I just love getting like that really good high Evo deck and just like destroying fools. Anyway,
I do have one other question, Steve.
Sure.
We always talk about this. Maybe you're going to mention it. A deck builder, always, and deck builder roguelite combo is intimidating because both of those game types can take a long time to beat. So I need to know, how long does this take to get some credits?
To get some credits. Okay, so the full game is about 12 to 15 hours. So it's a pretty meaty game.
You complete runs. You complete runs then, right? Before you get credits, it sounds like, right? But that's not spoiler.
You as with every roguelike, you will have completed a run before you get credits. Yes.
Okay.
You have to succeed across
multiple
the challenges, the multiple challenges that the game lays out before you.
Okay.
The actual pace of it will take 12 to 15 hours for you to beat the game. A successful run of the game will take you 20 minutes to 30 minutes or so.
So with Hades, that's the main point of context I would have for something you have to beat over and over again to actually beat it, right? I would say that if someone beats Hades, and I think we've discussed this before, and you guys have talked about it on Polykill, if someone beats Hades in a run, I don't think it's unfair to say that you beat the game, because you're going to have to beat that pretty much that exact same game with more story 9 more times, and then you get credits. Is Inscryption worth getting credits versus just completing a couple runs?
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
Yep. Okay.
And I will say for folks that have played both, the Hades analogy takes us so far and at some point breaks down in a way that would make more sense once you've played the game and we could have a conversation about it. But
yeah. Okay.
So my highs and lows in general for Inscryption are highs, incredible sense of atmosphere, a vibe like no other game. It's a really good game if you want to play something kind of intimidating in October, but you don't want explicit horror. You don't want to be like scared.
Right.
You just want to be unnerved. So Inscryption is perfect for that. It's like on a sliding scale where on one end is like Resident Evil 7 in VR on the extreme, and then the opposite end is like Majora's Mask or something, where it's like this isn't scary, but technically you could count
Bloodborne.
Bloodborne. It's more in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you, having played it, play this game outside of October and feel fine with it?
I think that would be okay. It is the perfect kind of game where you could justify it either way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would not save it for October. I did save it for October, but I would say, in hindsight, I probably didn't need to.
Okay.
So yes, incredible sense of atmosphere, really well designed game for how simple mechanically it is. I'm a big Hearthstone fan, so stuff like this does really appeal to me. And there's other highs that I won't speak to, but they're good. And then if I'm going to give any low to the game at all, it would maybe be that 12 to 15 hour runtime. For some people, could feel a little long. It depends on how much you're clicking with the card game. It depends on more than that, but at least in one way, it depends on how much you're clicking with the card game. It was not for me. I was not burdened by the runtime, but I can see it being. I could see a certain type of person being ready for it to be over more around the 8 to 10 hour mark. Sort of based on how the flow of the game works out. So, in conclusion, Inscryption, easy main quest. Easy main quest. We're coming in with the triple main quest today. Mm-hmm. It is. I don't think a lot of people would probably be surprised. This is also had quite the critical reception. It was very well lauded in 2021 when it came out. Oh, by the way, I don't even think I said this up front. It came out in 2021. It's a roguelike deck builder, and it's developed by Daniel Mullins and published by Devolver Digital. Should have said that at top line, but I was so busy warning people to not listen to me talk. This does continue our ongoing quest that we've never spoken of and isn't a real thing, but will inevitably happen, to speak to every Annapurna and every Devolver Digital game by the time this podcast concludes. It just sort of naturally happens that way.
Yeah. Now you absolutely have to play Death's Door and tell me which is the better 2021 Devolver game. Because they both came out in 2021.
Hey, Death's Door is one of the few games that is installed on my PS5 waiting to be played. It's just, gotta find that right time, man. You know, sometimes you play Death's Door, sometimes you have a son. You go one way or the other. It's tough.
Hey, Josh brought it on a second opinion, and that made me a happy boy. So
Yeah. And I really loved it. It was a great game.
Yeah.
Very good recommendation on that one.
But I am very much this is certainly the thing that's going to tip me over in playing Inscryption soon. Maybe we just mentioned a second opinion. Maybe bring it to one of those someday.
Nice.
But I've been wanting to play it for a long time. But I've talked before about how I'm not a big spooky game fan. I have heard it's a little bit spooky, and the big thing about Inscryption is don't look anything up and don't know anything before going in. So it's like, okay, well, I guess I just have to blind leap it. But now I know, obviously, it's not too bad, so I can probably jump into it. So
Yep. It's an easy recommendation, I think, for most people. Again, if you don't like deck builders at all, and you don't like card games at all, or I guess if you're just particular about card games and don't find this one fun, like, you may struggle to enjoy it. But I think for most people, even people that are not super into card games, I think there's so much around, like, in orbit of this game and around the edges for you to discover and learn and see, that you kind of won't even care. Like, even if there's a lot of people that even if I told you that the main game was like a simulation sports game or something, like a legit Madden, they still would be compelled to finish it. So it's awesome. I highly recommend you play Inscryption.
Wow. I was wondering how you would feel about it. I'm glad you liked it. I know that it's very highly acclaimed, critically acclaimed. So that's awesome. For at least for me, it always feels nice to line up with the consensus, to be like, hey, you know what? I agree. Let's ride that hype train, baby. Let's go. Yeah.
My name is Steve, and I'm not going to be a curmudgeon on IndieQuest today. You woke up feeling good. That's awesome.
I think we berated him too much.
Yeah, he's like,
you guys could never bully me. Drachma's been trying to bully me into the ground for years, and I stand tall.
Yeah.
Last episode we brought 3 side questers. Today we brought 3 main questers.
I know, we're making up for it. Now the Vyars of the world are like, all this extra time on the main quest that we have to play, because there are certain people in our audience who enjoy trying to play all the games on the quest log, specifically the main quest one. So when you have a triple dip in the main quest, that's a lot of extra play time for folks. But try to bring good recommendations. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, we got Smushi Come Home. We got Venba, and we got Inscryption, all on the main quest today. That's awesome.
Awesome.
So, you know what time that is. You know what that means? We're almost done with the show. That means we got to plug ourselves. So, thanks for hanging out with us. You can follow me on Twitter at Frantic Society. You can find the podcast at IndieQuest Pod. Steve, where can they find you on the internet?
Twitter and Twitch as Blinkum. How about you, Seth?
You can find me at or on Twitter or X at Captain Drachma. And can find me, of course, in the Polymedia Discord, best place on the internet. And the way to get into that Polymedia Discord is to search Polykill, which is the podcast Steve is also on, and then follow that up on the old Google by Patreon. Join us. I think we're at the $3 tier, and come be part of our amazing Polymedia family.
It's true.
Yeah. So if you guys have any comments, questions, feedback for the show, send us a little quiz. Anything fun, send it over at IndieQuestPod@gmail.com, and we will greatly appreciate it. And also, we're part of the Polymedia Network. So we're on Reddit, r/Polymedia Network, and there's also a bunch of other shows on the network. The captain here can shout out one that's on his mind.
Hasn't been an episode for it lately, but honestly, I was thinking about it the other day, like, man, I need another episode of Tales of the Lesser Medium. Sometimes we had Caleb on. We had Trav on recently. Those are the two hosts on Tales of the Lesser Medium. It's just a great game about video game stories, and they're told very funny. Oftentimes, the stories aren't really that funny in themselves, but those two can make about anything funny when they're talking to each other. So I recommend going and checking out that back catalog for Tales of the Lesser Medium, and hopefully there is one right around the corner for us to enjoy. Steve, what do you like?
I'm going to give it up to Uncle Doug's DVD bin, all right? If you're into I'm going to say movie review show with a comedy bent, all right? That's the way to go. They just dropped an episode on True Lies, one of the few movies I've actually seen in my life, which was a welcome surprise. It was at my grandmother's cabin growing up. It was one of like the 3 VHS tapes that she had, in addition to the Brady Bunch movie and some recorded footage of something off of TV. So I watched a lot of True Lies growing up. But if you're like, movies, I'm only in indie games. Well, they also did an episode a while back about Cocoon. You can decide for yourself if that's about the game.
Once you hit play, you have to listen to the whole thing. Like that's the rule of the podcast.
True. So go from there, my friends.
I think you should listen to Polykill. Polykill's a good show. It's about beating video games, talking about what's coming out soon, talking about games you're playing and games you guys have beat, and then you do a top 5. And what was your top 5? Top 5 2D games that would be spooky in 3D, right? In the recent episode. So check that out. It's always a good time. I look forward to you guys' episodes, to be honest.
Well, thank you.
So I guess that's going to do us for IndieQuest today. How about Steve? Why don't you throw out a couple of good words out today for the folks out there?
All right, I could do that. Hey, I hope you all made it out of spooky season just fine. All right, spooky season is done. Goaty season is here. All right, you've got 2 months. Go play catch up. My advice to you, plan out a couple games you're looking forward to playing. Hop in the car, drive on down, get yourself a nice bubble tea, some boba, okay? Delicious milk tea, and then crack into one of them bad boys. Really, really have yourself an afternoon of fun. And otherwise, keep playing indie games. You're the best. We love you. Goodbye. Mwah.
See ya.
Bye.